Going to be doing communication on video for a press conference. That should be really interesting to follow. I'm sure he's put a lot of work into preparing that. And then Rosemary is going to be doing her icebreaker. I'm very interested in hearing some more about Rosemary and I would like to just run through the agenda here and confirm roles. So we've gone over the speakers. Tom is going to handle the table topics. Mike O'Brien, general evaluator. And then first evaluator, Cody. And then the second evaluator.
That would be me.
Okay. And then Susan's going to handle timing report. John, you're going to handle grammarian.
That's right.
Okay. And then our Mike O'Brien, general evaluator. Okay, great. So let's explain roles. Tom, could you explain the table topics role?
So as the table topics master, I will invite, either through volunteer or through calling on somebody, no one will volunteer, someone to answer a question. It'll generally be something you can answer within a minute or so. So you can work on your talking off the cuff, like the elevator type speech.
Mike, can you explain the general evaluator role for us, please?
Sure. So here in Toastmasters, one of the great perks of public speaking is the opportunity to evaluate each other and evaluate our meetings. And as the general evaluator, I'll be giving, say, a summary, a sort of synopsis at the end of the meeting, just how everything went, if everything was punctual, and if everything was generally in order, and that we had a good, productive meeting.
Susan, could you explain the timing role?
Timekeeper ensures that speeches don't go long. I believe that, well, green is for the first sort of alert that the speech needs to be wrapping up within a couple of minutes. Sorry about that. And then amber is within a minute. And then red means you need to wrap it up right now.
Okay, and just to be clear, let's confirm the durations for the speeches. I have Maurice's speech here is 3 to 5 minutes. Is that correct, Maurice?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then Rosemary will be 4 to 6 minutes. Okay, great.
And back to mine, the question and answer will be 2 to 3 after following the 3 to 5.
Got it. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Okay.
Oh, no. I got it pointed right at the podium.
And John, could you explain the grammarian role for us, please?
So I'm looking for things like so, and I just said one. So, well, but, those kind of things, I count that. I make a note of which speaker, the use, which particular fillers and how often they did it. I listen to everybody's word usage. I explain the word of the day. Can we do that now?
Please.
Oh, y'all are just waiting. Dilettante. Dilettante is the word of the day. A dabbler in fine art or knowledge, having a superficial interest in superficial. Dilettante.
It'd be interesting to see how many people are reading.
I don't think I wrote the big one.
I know a couple of them, that simply is the word.
Okay, well, let's move on to our first speaker then, Maurice. Let's give him a round of applause as he press conference.
Rosemary's is actually 4 to 6.
It's Maurice.
4 is 5 is amber.
Good evening, everyone. I am Maurice Heidelberg, the spokesperson for the superintendent at the local school system. Welcome to the press conference. At this time, I will take a few minutes to talk about the school district's proposal to remedy any potential active shooter incidents. In the wake of one of the great tragedies that took place within the past couple of months, I am here today to discuss some of the changes that this school system proposes to implement in an effort to make our schools much safer. This is a time where this type of crime is on the rise. As most of you already are very aware of, on February 14th, 2018, there was another school shooting that took place at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Although there have been many similar incidents before and after this particular incident, this tragedy has sparked, more than almost any other incident, one of the greatest responses to gun violence in recent memory. This recent incident has sparked many arguments, such as the lack of response from some of the local law enforcement, and also some of the local and federal authorities not responding to previous tips on the active shooter. Also, due to this recent incident, some of the students helped to prompt a nationwide march on gun violence. Debates have also arisen over the Second Amendment of U.S. Constitution that includes a retired U.S. Supreme Court judge calling for the Second Amendment's repeal. While there is much debate on what should happen next as far as the purchasing of guns and solutions to gun violence, we must make an effort to reach common ground and find reasonable solutions. The following solutions that are being proposed by this school district, they're being proposed in an attempt to avert similar incidences above and beyond the defensive measures that are already implemented, such as cameras and metal detectors. Number one, we will deploy a minimum of 2 resource officers at each school or more, depending upon the local student population. Number 2, to have at least 1 squad car to roam around each school or several schools, preferably from the precinct that's closest to those schools. Number 3, at the higher grade level schools, we want to designate at least 2 students per classroom to volunteer to join a team called Bully Watch. There will also be 5 teachers to act as counselors to this Bully Watch team. This team will also incorporate the proper checks and balances to ensure that each member will act with integrity. The Bully Watch team will meet at least once a week to submit reports and to discuss strategies. A bully, or those who may have been bullied, are among those who are at higher risk to become an active shooter. Number 4, to implement better communication strategies between the school district, local, and federal law enforcement. We are encouraging each law enforcement agency to at least minimally act upon each tip that they receive on any student or any strange figure roaming around the school. There, of course, should be stern punishment imposed on anyone who submits a false tip given to law enforcement. And number 5, create programs to foster more parental involvement toward the safety of our students. We at the school district have not come to an agreement as far as arming school teachers as a possible defense to a potential active shooter at our facilities. While there are no measures that are 100% effective against potential active shooters, I feel confident that the proposed solutions can drastically reduce the potential for such incidents. With the proposed solutions that I have given before all of you, we hope that these will help to maintain the high standards and the stellar reputation of our school district. Our intent is not to add more inconveniences or distractions to the operation of our school programs. So at this time, I will take about 2 to 3 minutes to answer any questions that you may have.
So you said that the number of resource officers would be based on a student population. Do you have like a metric of number of officers to student population that's been determined?
Not at this time, but we will, during the next week or so, we'll have that figured out.
So what are the qualifications you're looking for in the security officers, and how will they be equipped?
They will be current local law enforcement officers, the police or the sheriff's department. They will be qualified law enforcement officers. And they'll have their issued weapons.
You mentioned implementing a program called Bully Watch, and it would take place once a week between student volunteers as well as teacher supervision. You brought up a remark of focusing on people who are more likely at risk of becoming an active shooter. Can you talk about what kinds of signs or what kind of conversations would be taking place in these Bully Watch meetings that would determine someone as a person being likely of becoming an active shooter versus those who are not?
Basically, those type of conversations will be based on any strange type of behavior. Every strange type of behavior does not necessarily indicate that a potential active shooter, but we won't pass up any strange activity. We will discuss any strange activity, and then we'll investigate as far as the students and the counselors can. Okay, any more questions?
One more. So are these officers going to be appropriated from different zones in the district, or are they going to be new hires that are going to raise taxes on the population to fund their salaries?
Well, we preferably would like to utilize the existing officers as much as possible.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you for your time.
You were well prepared for that one. That was an interesting topic. I think that's a very timely topic, one that's on a lot of our minds right now. So we'll move on to our second speaker. Rosemary is going to give her icebreaker.
Sure.
Hello, Toastmasters and guests. My name is Rosemary Mattal. Everyone has their own worldview and their beliefs, and I'm going to tell you all a little bit about myself, some background, so you can kind of have an idea of maybe why I have certain beliefs or my worldview. So I am first generation American. Both my parents immigrated from the Philippines, and my dad actually got here by joining the U.S. Navy. So I was a military brat, moved around a lot, born and raised in California, moved to Florida, lived in Texas, lived in high school, moved to Mobile, and somehow my family settled here in Mobile, Alabama. And all my extended family lives in the Philippines or in Australia or in New Zealand. So they're living a very tropical life. And as I guess my dress shows. And so definitely grew up in a military family with my dad always gone, being deployed. Wanted to be a boy, essentially. I just wanted to shoot guns and like ride motorcycles and dirt bike and all those kind of things you do in the desert. And then came down here to the South, and girls are definitely raised a little differently down here, a little bit more dainty and a lot more feminine, which was different. But with that, with the Filipino background and the military background, we kind of had a very not necessarily rigid. There was a lot of freedom. We could still be kids and still have fun. There was just a lot of discipline. I was definitely in charge of my younger sister, probably starting at 5 years old. You know, it's weird to me that kids who are 5 or 6 don't know how to cook and clean. That's odd to me. And but eventually that led me to, okay, I need to get a career, get a job, you know, help support the family. And my dad's a mechanic, and so naturally it's like, oh, I want to be a mechanical engineer, you know. So went to college, just like a lot of us here, a lot of engineers in the room. It's kind of weird. So went to college, got my degree in mechanical engineering, worked for the government, for the Department of Defense, and worked on missiles, conducting flight tests, traveled across the globe and across the country doing that. So it was really exciting. Then I left that world, the Department of Defense world, and moved to Little Rock, Arkansas, and started working in the, I guess, transmission planning, power industry, and it was not as exciting. And it was a lot of data analysis, not a lot of actually engineering, nothing that was mentally stimulating in the way that I was craving in a career. And so I quit. I quit my job after 3 years and in Little Rock, and went on an entrepreneurial sabbatical. And that has taught me a lot more than a job would have ever taught me. My mentality is completely different. Before I thought, okay, the company creates the experience for me, and I need to depend on them for my growth, my learning, whereas now I have to make my life, my career, my growth my own. And it's like, wow, that's kind of once I realized that, it's like, that was kind of a typical millennial mentality there I had, and I didn't realize. But I definitely learned a lot in the entrepreneurial sabbatical, and I kind of left that, had left on good terms with some business partners, and the past 6 months I've just been traveling, so it's kind of why here I'm like maybe here once a month at meetings. Been just backpacking around Europe or Asia, and actually next week I'm going to Spain and Portugal or wherever I want to go for a month or two. And so I've been doing that, and I've loved travel, and I've also been a dilettante in philosophy lately. That's kind of got me out of the rigid, you know, like structure, being an engineer, super Filipino Catholic family, and military, you know, like, okay, make your bed the military way. And so I'm discerning all the assumptions that have somewhat been built into my life, and it's been interesting learning everything that I just was kind of going with the flow, didn't really think twice about. And it's just nice growing, getting to the conclusion that, okay, I'm just going to choose whatever life I want to live. And people can be okay with it, people cannot be okay with it, it doesn't matter. So that's kind of where my worldview is right now. So I'm YOLOing, and that's about it. Mr. Toastmaster.
Very interesting. I enjoy the icebreakers, I think, more than any other speech, just because you get to learn so much about people, and we've got, I think, a really interesting, fairly diverse group here, a lot of different points of view and experiences and more. So let's move on to the table topics. Thomas is going to be running the table topics for us.
So spring is seen as a time of growth and renewal, at least everywhere I've lived. So in that theme of April's really when spring gets really roaring, would someone like to volunteer first? I'll always go for one. Cody, what is one area in your life in which you are trying to grow?
So I'm trying to grow all the time. Part of the reason I'm here, right? We're all trying to grow, trying to get better. Trying to get better, public speaking. Really right now, I kind of had the opportunity to come up, or I'm going to make a potential pivot, move, leave maybe the corporate world that I'm in and go work for a smaller company, more of a startup, and then also a completely different industry, going from engineering to potentially commercial real estate. So I'm really trying to learn a lot more in the commercial space. Been studying it for a couple years now, but I'm really kicking it up a notch to make sure I can provide the knowledge and skills that are going to be needed of me. So right now, trying to grow in that area. So if I continue to do that, hopefully I'll get the confidence to make or not make the move or make the move. So that's where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Last for one more volunteer, and then we'll start picking up here. Mike, how do you find renewal in your day-to-day life?
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, well, I guess like most people here, I get pretty stressed out with my job and just life. So I take a lot of steps in my everyday to actively not stress about anything. And I've got a few different methods for doing this. Honestly, this is a little strange, but back when I used to practice yoga quite a bit, which is a little weird. Well, not weird, that's not weird at all. But it's something that I got into, and with that, there's a meditation session at the end of each yoga class. So I've stopped doing yoga, but I meditate, honestly, and it's really cool for me. It really helps me de-stress, and especially after a long day at work. A lot of people at work get very passionate about different topics, and it's not always perfectly received, but it's a good way for me to go home and really just relax quite a bit. And it really refreshes me every day, and well, don't always get the negative thoughts out, but it helps me refresh and gets me excited for a new day. So that's what I did.
Trying to see who hasn't been up here already. Diego,
Yes.
if there is one skill you could have started developing earlier in your life, what would it have been?
Oh boy. Fellow Toastmasters, I think the most important skill and passion I could have developed at an earlier age was a love of reading. When I was younger, I was too fascinated with movies and video games to give books and a good read the time of day. Despite my parents' complete insistence on stop looking at the TV, stop being a couch potato, go pick up a book, go listen to a podcast, go exercise your brain, and less on junk food that is TV and trash TV and things like that. I think that is an important skill for me to have developed, because I think a lot of knowledge now happens through reading and recognizing the importance of tranquility and finding a quiet space and focusing on one thing at a time, as opposed to trying to dabble in many things like a dilettante. And I think if I had developed that mindset, that ability to recognize the value of focusing on one thing at a time, as opposed to trying to be a jack of all trades, I think that would have definitely prepared me more for the career that I want to do now in the environmental field. So I think developing and respecting the importance of reading would have been a very important skill that I should have developed at an earlier age, Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay, So also, Easter has passed recently, and with Easter comes, and many other holidays, come very interesting characters that are associated with those holidays. Justin, what is one holiday character that you enjoy, either now or when you were a kid, and what made them enjoyable? So, for example, Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, or anything like that has to be attached to a holiday. It's the only rule.
Well, Toastmasters, I've been asked to talk about a holiday figure that I relate to, that was close to me growing up as a kid. Santa Claus was the big one for me, and I think for a lot of children, when I was really young, you know, the whole year revolved around summer break and Christmas holiday. And put a lot of thought into Christmas, really looked forward to it. And Santa Claus was a centerpiece of that because I loved the gifts, I loved the toys growing up as a kid. But being a little analytical, a bit of an engineer, I remember looking at Santa Claus, and I hope I'm not tipping anybody off to something that you may not know. I'd watch I'd look at the logistics of it and go, well, how does he travel all around the world and the time zones? I mean, I guess you get 24 hours to do that. But that's, in all these houses and the time you have to spend per house, it just seemed logistically like a very difficult challenge. And then also, how does he fit down the chimney? And then later I moved to a house that didn't have a chimney. And I didn't understand, how does he even get into the building? So, you know, gears were in motion. I was really putting a lot of thought into this. And then we watched the news, and if you remember, or maybe you'll still see this now, they'll show the weather report, and the radar will show Santa Claus coming across your area. But it wasn't midnight yet, and Santa Claus was already there. He should have been someplace else at this time point. So I really enjoyed Christmas, and I really enjoyed the gifts and the holiday and the time with family, but I couldn't quite figure out how that Santa Claus thing worked out. Mr. Topics Master.
Sometimes you just gotta believe, Justin.
Build a spreadsheet.
No spreadsheets, not yet.
So we have time for one more topic. I'll ask for volunteers since, you know, we've done two and two. So any volunteers for the last topic? Okay, Rosemary. Mike mentioned meditation as a way for renewal. What other thing do you think meditation might help you with?
Meditation actually is something I've been practicing as well the past few years, so that actually kind of worked out. For me, other than renewal, it can, if I have emotions or am feeling extreme in any which way where I'd rather be centered and have some more control over myself versus being affected by others or the environment or just anything external. I sometimes would do a emergency meditation, especially if it was really trying times, someone is really pushing my buttons and I'm just trying to still act with kindness and out of conviction and not resentment. And at times I would use that as somewhat of a quick fix, like, okay, Rosemary, go ahead, you know, don't put yourself in their narrative. It's just a recheck. It's not about me. Don't make this about yourself. And actually also I like to start my day off with a meditation, a 10 or 15 day meditation outside in the sun. Now that the sun kind of comes out, I wake up later than y'all. I'm not working right now, so I can do that. And it gets me going in the right direction. I'll go on a jog, I'll eat right, versus eating, you know, like if you eat a donut first thing in the morning, you kind of want to do a bunch of bad stuff that follows. It's a kind of a snowball effect, and I use it to center myself and for peace. So, yeah.
Thank you all who have come up and answered some topics about crazy East holiday figures and how to grow and renew ourselves. Justin, the time is yours.
Okay. Great topics. So we begin the evaluation portion of the meeting, and that's going to be led by Michael Bryan.
Thank you, Toastmaster. All right, to begin the evaluation portion of tonight's meeting, I will welcome up our first evaluator, and that will be Cody.
Tonight I get the pleasure to evaluate Maurice's press conference, which is one I haven't seen yet, so it's interesting how that was done. And I like the fact that he thought of using some flash photography to kind of get it in that. Also this pulsating light strobe light effect. So there's a series of questions for the evaluation. The first one, how effectively did the speaker present his or her message? This is a very serious topic, and I thought he did well. He was calm and composed, and he kept a tone of voice that showed that he had some concern about what was going on with students, and it just came off very professional, good body language. I thought just the presence and the tone of the speech was very appropriate for the topic. Was the speaker able to maintain control of the conference during the question and answer period? So I kind of took a note of each question. First question, he didn't know, but he said that he would get back to him on the next conference, which I thought was a good answer. If you don't know, at least make the person ask the question feel like you care, so good on that one. Second one, you were prepared, you had an answer for it. The third one was a tough question, and you struggled a little bit with it, but you ended up giving an answer, and I think that was fine. I think that we were satisfied with the answer. And the fourth question, you answered. So overall, you did well. You maintained control, which is the most important thing. You didn't let the mob rise or people get out of hand. So that was good. Next question, how convincing was the speaker in explaining the company organization's position on issues or the situation? Was he or she prepared? Yes, I thought you were very prepared. You flowed through it well. You had the problem, you addressed it, you were detailed in the problem, what happened, and then you had solutions for the problem. I think that's the big key there, is to come prepared with solutions. Because if you don't have solutions, you just tell people a bunch of problems. I don't think they'll receive it very well, so that was good. How effective was the speaker in building or maintaining a positive image for himself or herself and the company or organization? Well, like I said from the first question, you were professional, in my opinion. Came off serious, the flow was good, you had good body language, so I think you represented your company or the school board well, and you were able to answer the questions. Comment on the speaker's appearance, gestures, body movements, were they appropriate? As kind of repeating myself, but yes, they were appropriate. You had a stern approach. You were serious, but required seriousness because the topic was very sensitive. You looked up and made eye contact several times with the audience. Maybe you could have paused a few more times on like some of the kind of hard-hitting points of it and like really kind of connected with the audience. But overall, it was a professional presentation, and I thought you did a good job. Thank you, Maurice.
Thank you.
All right,
Mike.
thank you, Cody. So for the second evaluation, we'll have Diego evaluating Roosevelt.
Everyone, I had the great opportunity of evaluating Rosemary's icebreaker speech, and I just want to go over a few of the questions that the evaluation guide gave me to think about. So, what strong points does the speaker already have? I think Rosemary's strongest point is the very calm and warm demeanor that she brings to the podium when she comes up here. I also really enjoyed how she was doing a good exercise of both looking at individual people, but also keeping an eye and looking throughout the entire room, not just focusing on one individual, but taking a good survey of the entire space that she's in. How well did the audience get to know the speaker? I thought this was a really great icebreaker. I found it very cool how she started discussing first about her family, how she had a military upbringing, how her family ended up working here. And I thought it was a really great transition into her talking about how she first pursued employment with the Department of Defense, and the steps that led her into pursuing a career in self-employment, as well as talking about how her perspectives on work-life balance and her perspective on life in general were being changed as her career paths and her interests were changing. Did the speech reflect adequate preparation? I think clearly the way that she presented indicated a lot of great preparation. I really liked her opening her body. But I think where there was some lack of preparation came with the conclusion. I felt that was the case because it was rather abrupt. It felt rather just two comments of, well, that's it, guys, in Mr. Toastmaster. So I felt that I think the conclusion is an area of improvement in my view. But also there's praise to be said of saying, of not overextending your welcome and saying, hey, this is what I want to share with you today, I'm out. Did the speaker talk clearly and audibly? I think she spoke very clear and audibly, but I would also encourage her to project a little bit more with some more volume. Did the speech have a definite opening, body, and conclusion? Like I said earlier, the opening and the body were really great, talking about her family, and then the body talking about her employment with the Department of Defense, and then her self-employment. And again, the conclusion was rather abrupt. Please comment on the speaker's use of notes. I noted that there was no use of notes, and so I thought that was really great. Or if she did use notes, she didn't make it clear to me. What could the speaker have done differently that would have improved the speech? I'm guilty of this tonight, but I noticed a lot of crutch words being used, and I'm of course guilty of that. I'm still working on that, so there's no issue there. And again, I think that the conclusion could be a great opportunity for improvement. And then to wrap up, what did I like about the presentation in general? First of all, kudos on using the word of the day. That was a great feat to pull off. Again, I really like the warm tone and the conversational approach that you brought to the podium. I really felt that you were talking one-on-one with us as opposed to talking to an entire room. And I also think that the gestures that you used throughout the speech really complemented your current train of thought and what you were trying to communicate with us. So that is the evaluation guide questions that I wanted to share with Rosemary's presentation. Mr. Toastmaster.
Not the Toastmaster, but back to the general evaluator. Thank you, Diego. That's very constructive feedback. With that, I would like to ask for a timers report from Susan. Do you have recorded times for
I do.
talks?
For Maurice's time for the press conference that he presented was 5 minutes and 15 seconds.
Okay.
His question and answer period was 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Rosemary's speech was 5 minutes and 50 seconds. And do you want me to also have the table topics? Cody's table topic was 54 seconds. Mike's table topic was 1 minute and 17 seconds. Diego was 1 minute 33 seconds. Justin was 1 minute and 46 seconds. And Rosemary was 2:03.
Okay. And then do you also have the times for the evaluations, or no?
I did not.
Okay, well, I think they were
They're around 3 minutes.
just
each.
around 3 minutes. But I think that's all good, thank you.
Just by watching the clock.
All right, so after the timers report, can we get a grammarian report from John?
Yes, thank you. How honest do you want me to be?
As honest as you want.
Brutally honest? Because
Brutally
I have no
honest.
business being here because you guys are tearing me apart. I'll be too honest, so. Maurice, I gotta say, I did not capture one single filler word, so that's amazing. And after about 2 minutes into your speech, I was just waiting for one, so you disappointed me in a good way there, so. Let's see, Rosemary, okay. Do you want the number of times or just kind of give you an idea of?
Whatever your heart desires.
Not confrontational answer.
Yes, will do.
That's an option. Okay, you've got some filler words that you tend to use, and I won't tell you how many times you use them. So, and but you did use the word of the day, so that's amazing.
It's a hard word to get.
You tend to kind of stretch your words out when I think you're gathering your thoughts for what you want to say next. Something about there. Straight into the table topics now?
Good.
Okay. Cody, on the growth topic, you said so 5 times.
That's us. We're both done on that one.
Mike, on the renewal topic, twice so, 1 and 4 ands. Okay. Diego, on the early skills, 1 so and 3 ands, but you used the word of the day. Justin, on the characters, one of the things I noticed here is you repeated back the topic. So the others just seem to get up there, go right into the answering the question, but you actually repeated back the question to the group as you were asked. So I thought that was a good thing.
It's a stalling tactic.
It is, but it's a good one.
Yeah,
It's a good one.
I'll go ahead and count that as 1.
I think all of these are stalling tactics.
You had 2 so's, 1 1 but, and 1 and.
I gave him a hard topic though.
Yeah. And you handled it very well. I'm a little
His and Mike's were the hard ones.
On Rosemary, on your meditation, you only had 1 1 and you had 5 and.
So that's the crutch.
And again, I just wrote that you tend to lengthen your words when you're trying to capture your thought for the next minute. That doesn't happen.
Didn't say no. You've gotten rid of that one.
So that wraps up my grammarian report. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So I will continue from there to give a general evaluation of tonight's meeting. And I'll start out by saying I thought that this was a great evaluation session. I'm just curious to see John's notes for writing down how many vowels he put in those notes. But I thought it was very constructive criticism, and I think that's something that we can all use to get better at public speaking. That's what we're here to do. So moving on, I thought Maurice gave a great first speech. I thought he did not shy away from picking a controversial topic, which was the goal. And Maurice took a hard stance, and as John alluded to, he didn't show any sign of weakness, no crutch words. And Maurice brought concrete solutions to the table and handled some not very softball questions quite well. So I thought that was a very entertaining part of this meeting, and I thought it was very effective. Rosemary gave her icebreaker speech, which is always wonderful. I think Justin said that icebreaker speeches are one of our favorite speeches, just because we get to learn so much about the different new members of the club. So I thought that was great. I thought we also had a great table topic session. Anything focused on growth in the new season and looking forward, I thought it brought a very great attitude to the meeting. And as I mentioned, I thought we had great evaluations. I would say it looks like we started at 6:46, so we can just aim to get a little bit better. But hey, that's not so bad. And with that, I think we had all in all a pretty great meeting, and also a very challenging word of the day, but that's what we're here for. So with that, I will turn the podium back over to Justin as our table topics.
Okay, thank you. We had a great evaluation session, everybody. So, Cody, will you be handling the education overview for us?
Yeah, I will talk about my office position.
Fantastic. Come on up, Cody.
So for For everyone who does not know, I am the VP of PR, so Vice President of Public Relations. Basically, I send out Facebook posts as my main goal, but overall, I try to tell people about the club, get people information outside of these walls. So the most effective way that I've found to do that for right now is using Facebook. So if you see a Facebook post, it's from me. Also, I will respond to people who reach out to me via LinkedIn messages or Facebook messages. Try to get back to them if they have any questions or interest about the club. Am I missing anything?
What's that?
Do you have any questions about the role? Anybody interested maybe in doing it at some point in time?
Come June, we're having elections for all of the new officers. This is one of them.
It's really not too bad. Just gotta remember to do the Facebook post.
What's your favorite thing about being VP, and what's the greatest drawback?
Favorite thing, I would say, is getting to promote the club, because I think it's a valuable club and it brings, it's really improved my skill as far as a professional, and I think everyone can benefit from the club. So being able to share it with my friends on Facebook and tell people about it, and people ask me, what do you get out of it? Why do you spend your Monday nights public speaking? That's kind of weird. And I can explain to them. It is a little weird, but it's actually fun in a weird way. So that's my favorite part. I guess one of the drawbacks, you just gotta make sure that you keep up with it. So I was absent for 3 weeks, so I got a little bit lazy, I guess. So my timing on my posts were a little bit later than usual. And also just as an officer of the club, you have the responsibility of trying to attend as much as possible, making the officer meetings and just being a part of your role.
Thank you.
I'll relinquish the lectern back to our Toastmaster.
Okay, thank you, Cody. Good job on that. No preparation. They put him on the spot right before the meeting. He just came up with that off the top of his head, so that was excellent. So that's the conclusion of the regular part of our meeting. I'll turn control of the meeting back over to Thomas.
So, we do have some awards. We'll give those out next week because we're actually running very much barely on time. That minute actually matters today. So we'll go straight into the reviewing of next week's agenda. Currently, no one has volunteered for anything next week, so this is your time to volunteer for a speech. Always, those are the first things we ask for. Anybody want to do one of their speeches next week? I won't be here. I'm going to be traveling for work. I will actually be conducting a open house for one of my projects up in Atlanta. Actually, during this meeting that lasts 3 hours, and I'm in charge of it. So I won't feel bad for any of y'all.
Is Pathways open yet?
Pathways opens in June. So, no.
I'll give a speech.
Okay.
I'll do icebreaker. I can.
I could be Mike's evaluator.
I'm sorry, I just all of a sudden don't remember your name.
Oh, it's Imogene. Imogene. Morehouse, Morehousc.
Okay. Awesome.
I'll do Toastmasters.
Encouraging.
So I need an officer to be the person who's in charge.
I'll do that.
That'll be noted by the fact that you're in charge of awards next week. I'll
Okay.
send you an email with who's supposed to get it.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, we need a grammarian, a timer, a general evaluator, a tabletopics master, a second evaluator.
I'll do a general evaluator.
I'll do tabletop.
Grammarian.
So now we're just second evaluator and a timer from having all of our roles filled.
Can I be the second evaluator?
I think you can only evaluate one.
I would say no, just so that you have time to finish your evaluation of the first speech before you have to, because
Okay.
the speeches come pretty quick, and I've never been finished when the second speaker starts, personally.
I can speak to experience.
So do we have someone for timer or second evaluator? If not, then.
Well, I'll do it if no one else,
Well, I mean, your general evaluator,
Yeah.
so.
yeah.
Or I can do timer in parallel.
Yeah, Justin, because you're just in charge of the meeting. That's a simple thing. Just
I
turn
think,
it over
I
to
think
the
if we only have to
master.
fill one role as the meeting begins, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. Everybody's gonna be here next week, right? Awesome. Then with that, unless there's something someone would like to bring before everybody, remember if you're able to help Maurice on Thursday this week, see him after the meeting so he knows who he has coming to help him out for a timer, an evaluator, and a grammarian. Table topics master, that's it.
Topics
sorry.
master, yeah.
So those 3 roles. Okay. There's nothing else. Meeting's adjourned.